This is an information session about the Music and Dance Tuition Scheme for 2025 for those who are applying for the first time or those who have applied before. Most important aspect is the deadline. Uh, Deadline is 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 17th of July. If your application hasn't made it through the portal by that stage, it will be rejected. The system closes down at 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 17th of July. It's an online only application process. We would advise you that it's vitally important that whatever email address you use for the project application, that email address is a valid one. It is checked regularly, as this will be the main point of contact for your application. The next important thing to be aware of is there are a number of compulsory uploads that you have to make to the government funding database as part of your application. And if those documents are not there when assessment begins, your application will be deemed ineligible and the agency will not be contacting you. So if the very first thing you do after watching this video is to check the government funding database and make sure that the documents you have to upload there are there. If you're not registered, you need to register with them as a new organisation. If perhaps you're already there and you've forgotten your login details, then you can log in and click the forgotten my password link, and that will allow you then to get your new password and have access to government funding database. The two documents that have to be there, and they must be signed and current versions of the following. You have to have your constitution, whether that be just a constitution or it may be a memorandum and articles of association. And you also have to upload the most recent set of accounts for your organisation as set out in your constitution. So if your constitution says audited accounts, then they need to have been audited. If they're certified, then they need to be certified. If they're just adopted by your group after being checked by people within the group, then that's fine too. But whatever your constitution says, that's what they need to be. And you need to have them uploaded to the government funding database. For anybody who doesn't know what it looks like, if you go into the government funding database, this is the sort of information you see, and you can see at the bottom of the screen there, it indicates what documents are there for this band, Plumbridge Bamboo Pipe Band. I'm going to go back one there. If you're having problems with the password, this is the link to recover it. You can also email the people at vcd@communitiesni.gov.uk. So the meat and bones of the application itself, where you start. So part one of the application form, it asks for organisation and details. This is all the basic information about your organisation. So the name of the group, the address you meet at, and then there are a couple of pull down menus, which are county, or which county you're in, which council area you're in, which parliamentary constituency, and those are just, as I said, pull downs. You then have to list your organisation's officers. So treasurer, chairman, vice chair, whatever, list them in line with what's in your constitution. And then the project manager, and this is going to be the person responsible for the application and any and all correspondence with the agency. The project manager doesn't have to hold another role in the organisation. They could just be somebody who's going to be responsible for delivering this project, but they must know the details of the project. Part two is about the project. So it's a project title and your venue details. Project title doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be the name of your band, drum tuition or flute tuition or whatever it is. That's all it needs. And then the venue, where are you going to hold your tuition sessions in? Next question it asks, is your venue suitable? And that's a yes or no. Be very clear. If it's a no, you cannot proceed. If your venue is not suitable for the project, then we can't fund it. Is there a legal lease in place? That, again, a yes or no, but on this occasion, you may not have a lease. That's fine. We're just asking that. And then the next question is type of grant. Is it strand 1 or strand 2? Strand one is simply it's a tuition project. You're teaching the people the skill that you're teaching them, and there's no expectation that they're going to try and get accreditation or certification for it. Strand two is where there is some form of exam or test at the end of it, which potentially will lead to certificates. If you're doing a Strand 2 project, you need to also tell us here then who the awarding body for the accreditation is and what the accreditation level is at. Next part of it is type of tuition. Dance, flute, drum, lambeg, can be whatever. And whatever type of tuition you use, this is what you're telling us. Your anticipated numbers who are going to be taking part. Bear in mind, within the guidance notes, it tells you what the minimum numbers are for music, including drum majoring. You have a minimum number of 5. For dance, it's a minimum number of 10. Start date and end date. You can't start before the 1st of September, and it must be finished by the 31st of May 2026. The next element on the application then is a table where you list all the dates of the weeks you're going to be doing your tuition project. We would recommend keep a copy of this, copy the table out and put it into a Word document so as you have a copy of it. The programme itself is a competitive one. Year on year, whilst the budget has remained relatively stable, the number of people applying has increased. So therefore, what you put in your application form will be assessed, and those who answer the questions best will score higher and therefore are more likely to be funded. The next sort of 5 questions plus your scheme of work are what comprises the scoring process. Question 1. Provide details of how what your organisation does currently promotes Ulster-Scots culture, language and heritage within your community, and tell us if your group participates in other programmes delivered by the agency, including summer schools, festivals and schools tuition. There's a maximum of 200 words here, and if you want to, you can also add additional photographs to as evidence of things you've been involved with. So what sort of events have you gone along to? You know, does your band provide a summer school as well? Are you involved in other things taking place within your wider community that you are taking part in and therefore showcasing Ulster-Scots traditions? So, for example, it could be your Highland dance group and you're taking part within community showcases that your local community are doing. You're broadening the appeal then of Highland dance then into a wider community. Similarly, if you're a band, you're taking part in other things. You're putting on showcases. You're maybe taking part in a Burns night or you're delivering a Burns night yourselves. What's your repertoire? What sort of music are you playing? Are the tunes traditionally Scottish tunes that are sort of associated with Ulster Scots? Then, you know, tell us about that. Have you delivered a festival? Do you take part in festivals? Have you run a tuition project before teaching people the skills? Is it about the quality of your tuition? Or even down to things like you may be the only group offering this within your local community for miles and miles around. Talk about that. But remember, 200 words. Use bullet points if they help. Remember also that the people doing the assessment can only assess what's on the page in front of them. So don't think, oh well, we're really well known. We don't need to mention that because they'll know who we are. They may not. Outline how your project's going to raise awareness of Ulster Scots culture, language, and traditions within your community. This one's a maximum of 150 words. Are you teaching new people and teaching new skills to people? Is your repertoire improving? Are you teaching new tunes? Are you providing an opportunity even just for people to engage with the culture? Are you continuing the tradition? Maybe your band's been on the road for 50 years and this is the opportunity to keep it on the road. So you're keeping it alive. Again, could be your location. You might be the only group operating something like this within a 20-mile radius. Or you could be teaching people to improve their skills and be even better than what they were before. Question 3. Tell us how your scheme of work reflects the participant's ability and how you will manage different skill levels. It's a maximum of 150 words again here. Bear in mind that each project, as part of your application, you're required to upload a scheme of work showing how you're going to teach people, what you're going to teach them, how you're going to teach it, when you're going to teach it. And this is about What happens if you have some people who come in as absolute beginners, as well as people who are a bit more advanced in terms of either their dancing or their musical skills? How are you going to cope with that within the confines of your tuition project? So, does your lesson plan provide achievable learning outcomes in the time frame available to you? Does it provide progression routes? Are you tailoring your classes to suit the skill level? So is there going to be somebody teaching, in weeks 1 to 5, are you going to be teaching absolute beginners one thing, but more advanced learners something different? Are you able to do that within the confines of your tuition project? Are you going to bring new numbers through? Are your work going to take time to work with the new or the slower learners to improve their skills? Are you going to reflect back on how people are learning? So, at week 5, you're going to assess how have the new people taken on the learning in those first 5 weeks? Do we need to go over stuff again? Your tutors should know how to do this, and it needs to be reflected then within your scheme of work that's submitted. There's a skills table then that asks you, tell us about who your potential participants are. How many of them are absolute beginners, no experience? How many will have some skills they might have been learning for the last couple of years? And how many of them do you expect to be experienced? How many of them have been coming to you for years and years? And maybe they're your improvers rather than your learners. And then your total number of projected participants. Question 4. Provide details of 3 realistic learning outcomes which you aim to achieve because of this project and outline how these outcomes will help sustain and develop your group in the future. This is all about realistic learning. So if you bring somebody into this project now as an absolute beginner, it's highly unlikely that by the end of, the 20 or 30 weeks tuition, they're going to be an expert unless they're remarkably gifted. So what you want to be able to tell people is you're going to enhance people's skills. You're going to teach people new things. You're going to teach new people altogether. You're going to inspire confidence in the people learning. Your tutors are really good. They have loads of experience of teaching people these skills. And the actual quality of the tuition itself, as well as the tutors, is going to lead to realistic learning outcomes for people. You're stimulating interest in Ulster-Scots traditions, or you're ensuring the continuity of that. You might even be just the very fact that you're delivering this is going to maintain your group's existence. There are a number of bands out there that over the last few years have said, were it not for the tuition scheme, they may not be able to field a band onto the road. The tuition scheme has managed to bring in new people, teach them new skills, and then that has meant that the band has continued on the road. And that's exactly the sort of thing that is inspiring to hear, but it should be a realistic outcome of what you're trying to do. Question 5 is about group management and the skills that you have. How's your group managed? Have you managed any other grants in the last 12 months? What experience exists within your group to deliver the project? You have a well organized committee. The people on your committee are involved in things in other walks of life that give them skills that will be useful in managing this project. You might have delivered a tuition project before, or a different type of project, but you've managed the money, the budget, and delivered it. You've got your policies and procedures in place. You have experience of managing grants, or you've had relevant training that shows that you can deliver a project. Sometimes groups will come and they'll say, well, we have never done this tuition project before. How can we prove that we can do this? But for example, you might be a band, and a band might have decided that a number of years ago they needed to get new uniforms. So they decided how they were going to do this. They were going to work out how much those uniforms cost. They were going to start saving over a period of time, undertake a number of fundraising activities, which would let them raise that money. And then that money would then be used to deliver the new uniforms, or a trip. You might, some bands sometimes will take a trip to somewhere like the Somme, or maybe even the World Championship, Pipe Band Championship in Glasgow, and organising, making the arrangements around that and making that happen can be accepted as a project that the band has delivered. The next ones are sort of quick tick box ones. Is your tuition project open to the whole community? Again, a yes or no question. The only acceptable answer here is yes. There's an expectation that you will be opening this up to anybody who wants to take part in it. And it has to be separate from your normal band practice in the case of bands, or dance practice if you're a dance group. How's your group going to advertise the project within your community? There's a number of tick boxes. Tick as many of those boxes as you think you're going to be able to do, and be realistic about what you're going to do. You know, if you're going to advertise this just on your social media feeds, tell us that. That's fine. If you're going to put posters up in your local shops or in local churches, tell us that too. That's great. Remember to keep copies of anything like this because it's evidence then that will be asked for at a later date. Does your group intend to seek any funding for the tuition? Bear in mind that not all of the cost of your tuition can be met from the tuition grant. You have to put some money into it yourselves. How are you going to do that? Are you going to do it through your own money? Or are you going to apply to someone else to support the funding of the necessary funding gap? And if that's the case, then you need to tell us that, because if we discover it later, then potentially we could withhold your money. Tutor details. Who are your tutors? What type of tuition are they going to provide? Are they a flute tutor, or the drum tutor, or the pipe tutor? Are they Highland dance, or the Scottish country dance, lambeg, whatever it is? You need to tell us what type of tuition they're going to deliver, what their experience of that is. So they need to have been able to do this for at least 3 years. And if particularly for those projects that are looking at doing accredited training, or accredited tuition, the tutor needs to be at a higher standard than the level of tuition that he's given, or she's given, just so that they have the skill to take you to the level that you need to get to. Are the tutors related to the signatories? Yes or no? And can you confirm that all tutors are Access NI or Garda vetted? And that's a yes or no. And then you must upload a copy of their scheme of work. So your tutors should be able to give you the scheme of work that you need for this. Getting to the money aspect of it, your project budget. So depending on your currency, it's either sterling or euro. In terms of your expenditure, what you're going to spend, you need to specify all the expenditure you're going to make as part of this project. Show the breakdown of the costs, including your tutors and your hall rental. Include the cost of accreditation if it's Strand 2 project. And if you're providing an in-kind contribution. So for example, occasionally groups will operate out of local halls, and those local halls will allow them to use the hall for at no cost. You're able to claim within the application a venue hire cost of up to £30 a week. If the hall is going to allow you to do the thing in the hall for nothing, then that can be counted as an in-kind contribution. So you need to include it in your expenditure. So you say, okay, we're paying £30 a week for the hall, but then you also need to have a letter from the group that says, we're giving you the hall valued at £30 a week for the duration of your project. And that also then counts as an income and helps to offset the overall shortfall between what the agency will give you and what the cost of your project can be. Income, you specify any proposed income, so include the grant that you're asking for from the agency, what money the group itself is putting in, and if there is an in-kind contribution, for example, the hall rental, then include that as an income as well. And that should give you then at the end of it all a figure which is the total grant you're seeking from the agency. For music, these are the eligible costs. There's a maximum of 20 weeks of tuition, which has to happen between the 1st of September 25 and the 31st of May 26. You're allowed a maximum of 2 tutors with a minimum of 5 participants per tutor in each class, a maximum of 2 hours tuition per week per instrument, and the maximum tutor rates are calculated at £25 per hour for a qualified tutor. Hall rental rate capped at a maximum of £30 per week, not per night. So if you're running your tuition project on 2 separate nights of the week, as some projects do, you can only claim hall rental once per week. Strand 2 for music, you can get accreditation. The accreditation has to be completed before the 31st of May 2026, and you can claim for up to 20 accreditations at a maximum of £20 each. So you can claim up to £400 for accreditation. This is just a simple sort of worked example to show you how the costs break down. So if it's a music project, a Strand 1, so no accreditation involved, you have a flute tutor who's going to be there for 2 hours a week for 20 weeks at £25 an hour, that's £1,000. A drum tutor, again, £25 an hour for 2 hours for 20 weeks, another £1,000. Your hall rental, £30 for 20 weeks. Your total cost gives you £600, and then your total cost of your project would be £2,600. The maximum grant you can apply to the agency for is 1,950, which means you have to make up £650. This is where in-kind costs come in, because you could offset 600 of that £650 by an in-kind contribution for the use of a hall. Otherwise, you're going to have to explain to us how you're going to fund that shortfall. A worked example for strand two, exactly the same. Pipe tutor this time, £1,000. A drum tutor, £1,000. Hall rental 600, but this time added in another £400 for accreditation fees. Your total then rises to £3,000. The maximum grant here you can claim for is 2,250. And even with your £600 hall rental, you would have to find another £150. Eligible costs around dance. It's a maximum of 30 week situation between the 1st of September and the 31st of May. Again, you're allowed a maximum of 2 tutors, although for dance you need a minimum of 10 participants per tutor. Dance tutors can also claim travel at 45 pence per mile, up to a maximum of 600. There's a maximum of 4 hours tuition per week. Tutor rates capped at £25 an hour, and hall rental still £30 a week. Strand 2 dance. So if you're doing accreditation for the dance tuition, you're allowed to get up to 30 accreditations at £20 a person, so up to a maximum of £600. Worked example here is around your dance costs. So your dance tutor, £25 an hour by 4 hours by 30 weeks. Gives you £3,000. Travel 12 miles at 45p by 30 weeks gives you 162. Hall rental £30 by 30 weeks, 900. So the maximum cost of that would be £4,062, and the maximum you can claim from the agency is, as always, 75% of the grant, so £3,046. Again, another worked example, this time with accreditation adding in an extra £600. So total cost of the application this time would be 4,662, and the maximum grant is £3,496.50. So all the costs are pretty sort of straightforward across the board. If you are applying for a project in the Republic and you are looking to claim in euro, then the exchange rate that the agency will be working to this year is that £1 equals €1.16. Okay, in the home straight now. Part 5 of the application then is about your supporting documentation. For those groups in Northern Ireland, you have to confirm as part of your application that the following documents have been uploaded to the government funding database, and that is your organisation's governing document, your constitution, signed and dated by the current chairperson, as well as a copy of your most recent annual accounts, signed and dated in accordance with your organisation's governing document. Groups in the Republic of Ireland, you must upload the following documents with your application. So you have to put in a copy of your governing document and your annual accounts as well. But they just are uploaded with the application rather than via government funding database. All groups must also upload with the application form a current original bank statement. It must be no more than 2 months old. Or alternatively, you can get a bank printout. Go to your bank branch and ask for a printout, or if you have access to online banking, an online banking printout. Both of those need to be signed by one of the authorised officers listed in your application. If you're lucky enough to have more than £1,000 in your bank account, we also need you to upload a short document which details what the financial commitments you have as an organisation. that require you to keep that £1,000. It may be that you're doing repairs to your hall. It may be you're planning a trip to the Somme. It may be you're saving up for new uniforms. Whatever it is, that's all we need to know. We have £1,500 in the bank. It's being used to buy new uniforms. That's why we can't spend it on this project. That's all you need to do. Part 6 is the declaration. By signing the application, you're giving us permission to discuss the proposal with other funding institutions or public sector bodies. You have no objections to us placing the proposal with outside consultants to do the assessments. You understand the requirements to maintain accurate financial records, and you're aware that you must tell the agency about any changes to the proposed project immediately or any change of circumstances which is likely to impact on it, including the provision of funding from other sources. You're also telling us that you have all the necessary safeguarding policies and procedures in place and that you're complying with relevant statutory requirements, for example, around things like disability access. We have to make you aware of this fraud warning. Your organisation or its representatives may be prosecuted if it knowingly provides false documents or false information or statements in support of this application for financial support. The organisation and its representatives may also be subject to prosecution if it fails to inform the agency of the provision of any additional funding support from any source that may require repayment of any part of a grant being provided by the agency under the terms of this agreement. Be aware that false statements can result in prosecution. All applicants for assistance should note that when a proposal is being considered and assessed, there can be no commitment by the agency to provide financial support until the letter of offer has been signed and returned and any supporting documents supplied. All assistance is subject to the terms of the funding agreement. There is an element this year where, as part of the process, there will be a mandatory workshop that all successful applicants will have to attend, which means that they can come along and find out all the requirements for accepting the grant and doing the necessary paperwork around the grant. Few things to keep in mind. You have to have a minimum of 5 students per tutor for each musical form, and included in musical form are drum majors. Unless you're in the Republic of Ireland, in which case it's 3 students per tutor. You need 10 students for dance projects, and tutors need to have at least 3 years teaching experience. The tutors cannot be closely related to the signatories of the application, so it can't be mother, brother, sister, father, son, daughter. Tutors can be officers of the organisation, but they can't be the project manager, the treasurer, or a signatory to the application form. Hopefully that's clear enough. Safeguarding, you're expected to ensure you have the necessary safeguarding policy and procedures. As part of the offer of funding, we will send you out a safeguarding checklist, and we expect you to complete that and return it. And that asks a number of questions which relate directly to your safeguarding documentation. If you have any questions about that, you can either contact us or the Ulster-Scots Community Network. Obviously, groups based in Northern Ireland should be using the Northern Ireland Safeguarding Checklist, and those in the Republic of Ireland should use the Child Protection and Welfare Policy Checklist for the Republic of Ireland. If you have any further queries about the programme, or if you need to talk about any aspect of it, you can either contact David Macaulay at the Ulster-Scots Community Network, and his email address is there on the screen, as are his numbers, or you can contact David Gilliland at the Ulster-Scots Agency, and his mobile number is there. And where possible, we will assist you to get you across the line, but just be mindful, the clock is now ticking. There are holidays coming up before the deadline. The deadline is immovable. So 17th at 3 p.m. Okay, hopefully that is of some use to you. And if there's anything else we can do, then don't hesitate to get in touch with us.